where the city was going, because you never just want to look at a period of time when you're dealing or managing a budget. You want to look at an overall year, 5, 10-year growth and look at your past to really determine what you're going to be evaluating. What this particular slide demonstrates is you look at the y-axis and your x-axis. What the x-axis says is how many years post turning the city back on at some level when the economic activity starts beginning again, how many years these various cities will take to regain economic flourishing again. What the y-axis provides is what makes New Orleans very vulnerable to this. And you'll see us way over there on the corner. And really, it's the prevalence of our transmission, our hospital system, and the health of our population. And why this slide's important is because if we were too early to open the city back up at some level, because of what's happening on the y-axis, this could prolong what our pre-COVID recovery could end up as. And this also is an important framework to understand what we should be looking at in the future moving forward in the budget. And you can see in a comparison to what other cities are dealing with there as well. We can go to the next slide.
And we were further back. We were further away, or 5 years. Now it's moved it in to at least the 3-year mark. But how we're looking at the data and how it shifts based on those variables, it just matters.
Yeah, so what the mayor was saying is that, sure. What the mayor was saying, originally when we were doing our analysis, New Orleans was a little bit over here, but with the transmission of and the decline of our deaths and some of our active cases, we're slowly moving this way. Now, once again, there's no absolutisms in any of this work that we're doing as far as analysis goes. Things change every single day, as well as they do in the economy. But this sets a baseline kind of where we can start evaluating post-recovery time. And as our momentum gets more full and more thorough, and based on this health vulnerability index, we'll be able to continue to move closer toward, a shorter time to recover. Okay, we can go to the next. This is a busy slide. This looks very full. Basically, what I wanted to articulate here is you have to look at all the various scenarios through the world. And what these scenarios identify are the options of recovery. What seems to fit New Orleans well based on our modeling is the muted recovery. That's A1. And what that takes into account is also a regression. You have to be able to manage through, because you have to understand that there's going to be periods where we'll move forward, and if there's an outbreak, we have to go back. All that is factored into your economic analysis. What seems to make the most sense, and what experts agree and that we've been working on, is the A1 resurgence as far as the muted recovery growth. And that's important because what the next slide is going to provide is our sensitivity analysis. Now, a sensitivity analysis is hypothesis-based, but it's very pragmatic in how we evaluated where our various gross receipts were going to be provided. So you'll see we have 3 different scenarios, 3 different sensitivity analyses that have been moving forward. First, you see the muted recovery, and then you look at it through $130, $150, and $170 million lens, and you'll be able to see with each revenue stream the changes in what you'd have to collect moving forward and where we would be. And that helps us monitor on a month-to-month basis what adjustments and where we have to change related to that. The next couple of slides will be a little bit more quickly, and we'll distribute these to everyone else. But so that these numbers don't appear in any sort of way arbitrary or we're just putting them out there, there's some significant data that went into our assumptions. And if you want to go to the next couple of slides, different visuals of the same data that shows linear graphs that can provide the same information, mostly driven by the indicator of GDP. And then the last graph is the almost the advanced analytical assumptions that we have been driving to then promote where our deficits have lied. And that, in some ways, takes us and frames us in totality of what we have been studying and analyzing. Now, all of this information is vital to have the important data coming in, and it's taken the time, and we've been working on it to ensure that we have the right data to provide so that we can make calculated risk and analysis as we move the city forward. What the mayor said, and what's vitally important, is a steady continuity of services, and that's something that we've been focusing on in its entirety. But on the reverse, we wanted to be very, very thoughtful and prudent on what type of assumptions and where we wanted to go. The cuts and the decisions we make as an organization affects people's lives. And you want to be accurate, you want to be thorough, and you want to be advanced on how you're deciding to move forward with those changes. So that sets the framework, I hope, for some of our large picture economic, macroeconomic scaling. And now I'll dive a little bit more into the fiscal scenarios on where we are today, and then open it up for questions. I'll get into the budget reduction plan and where we'll end up, and I think we'll be open for questions. So we can go to the next one, Chad. So this is a little bit of an oversimplified version of probably something similar to you see in your bank account, just with different numbers, of course. We are, this is fiscal year, which happens to coincide with calendar year. Our fiscal 20 budget was $725 million. So far, we've spent, and it's May, and this is, I think, about a week old, $218 million. So our overall budgeted expenses are $507 million. Now, when the mayor talks about the COI, Certificate of Indebtedness, or the long-term deficits, you have to take two different frames and understand two different perspectives. You have your short-term liquidity issues, your day-to-day operations, and then your long-term deficit. So why 2020 is going to be viewed differently than 2021 is simply because of your cash flow and your liquidity measures that you have to take into place. So if you take down the next stage, you'll see our expenses. Now, this is preliminary. As the mayor said, the department directors provided us their budget reduction plans on Wednesday. The reason we took a very thoughtful approach in that regard is we wanted, as the mayor said, to empower our directors. Who better to provide budget-cutting savings and knowledge on how that'll affect the operations than our own directors? We believe that there is some ability to cut somewhere between $35 and $50 million based on their assumptions. And I will get into some of the details of that information. Now understand, and I'll qualify it with, that has to be more thoroughly analyzed and articulated. This is not something we're going to be very rash over, and this is one of the reasons that we wanted to take the important time necessary, because this will mean augmentation of operations and things of that nature. So we have to be thoughtful and deliberate and not unilateral in any sort of way on some of those savings. But they are real, and there is some strong confidence amongst the leadership team that we're going to be able to implement a significant portion of that. The $16.7 million was our surplus coming in, absent of our rainy day fund balance, or the overall cash position. So as the mayor said, we came into pre-COVID financially strong. And that's an important testament to the work of the administration, and some of the decisions made by the council and others alike is the structural balances that we have fought for, the advocacy of the fund balance and the reserve, have simply allowed New Orleans to weather a longer period of this time than many other cities, despite the significant impact that we are going to be facing. So you couple those together, and then you see what could be potentially our shortfall. But once again, I'll go back to that shortfall based on the assumptions that you saw were extremely detailed and complicated and can vary at any given time. So everything is a little complex and moving, but at least we have data and knowledge and understanding to be able to move forward as the city. The other graph next to it gives you a little bit more of my revenue stream that is affected currently, and what the impact is right now post-COVID based on our GDP indicators and our actual collections. Everything, once again, is unaudited, and it is not, and in some cases, hypothesis-based. We can go to the next slide. I thought this is important. This just sets a framework for what other cities across the countries are doing. And we are not alone in this, in any sort of way. This is just a snapshot. This is a couple weeks ago, and I'm sure it's changed since then. Cities across the country are facing these revenue losses. What's going to make New Orleans unique, and what the mayor's charged us with, certainly, is we will advocate and fight for our federal funding. However, in some cases, we may have to handle this on our own, and we're prepared to do that. In order for us to handle it on our own, I'll go and talk a few items on our budget cuts and then get into some of the personnel spend to be able to weather and manage it through. But I thought that was just an important backdrop to see some of the decisions other cities have made. We are being very thoughtful, and we're using certainly a scalpel instead of a hatchet to make some of these cuts, but they're significant.